So some metaphors and analogies that are helpful with kids and teens are, first of all, to identify the OCD as a false alarm. That's something that teenagers and adults can relate to. The definition of a false alarm, and I'll usually tell a story like, what do you do when you hear the fire alarm go off at school? Well, we leave the building, drop everything, go outside. Well, what happens if someone says, oh, don't worry, it's a false alarm? Well, then we just come back inside and go about our business. And I say, well, you see, OCD is a false alarm in your mind. That's exactly what happens. It tells you there's a danger, there's a fire, but really there isn't. And so when you recognize it as a false alarm, then you can go about your business as usual. So obviously little kids won't get that analogy, but middle schoolers, high schoolers, and adults get that. For the little ones, the analogy of a worry trick really works well. And I usually start by saying, look, there's a spider on your head. And they'll look a little surprised, and then they'll laugh, and I say, what did I just do? And they say, you tricked me. And I say, because you knew it was a trick, you didn't have to be afraid. You see, but if you'd believed me, how would you have been? And they say, well, I'd have been scared. Well, OCD is like that. It plays worry tricks on your mind, and it tells you that all these things are scary, but really, it's just a trick. It isn't true. So most kids really grab onto that analogy very well, and once they get that idea, it's a 180-degree perspective shift for them. You see, once you start thinking about OCD completely differently, then it changes your response to OCD. So that's the first key analogy. Then after that, I talk about treatment as like riding your bicycle up and down a big worry hill. At first, it's tough to ride your bicycle up the hill. You're huffing and you're puffing. You want to quit and get back down. But it's only when you stick it out you get to the top of the hill, and then you get to coast down the other side. That's the fun part. That's when you get used to your anxiety and you find out nothing bad will happen. It's the fun part. Another very useful analogy is that of the swimming pool. Facing your fear is like jumping in a cold pool. What does the water feel like when you first get in? It's cold. But then what happens after a little while? It warms up. Why is that? You get used to it. Well, in the same way, most people don't know this, but our bodies get used to anxiety in the same way they get used to the cold water in the pool. And again, kids, once they get that, it really makes a difference. So these are ways in which kids then are made more ready to face their fears.